The PlayStation 2 is home to a serious amount of racing games that were released over its lifespan. But there were many games that were released on the console that, for whatever reason, we never got to see, as they were released in different regions, more predominantly with Japan. And one of the games we'll be looking at here is known as Edit Racing, that would fall under the Simple 2000 series Ultimate Edition, which would be Volume 2, which would be one of the earliest games to be released in this category. And upon first glance, the game does look quite promising, as it was published by D3 Publisher, but the game's developers was known as Yuke's, that were also responsible for making many popular game series, even with the development of other types of franchises on the PlayStation, even the PS1 and the like. They were even responsible for developing the likes of the WWF SmackDown games way back in the day. So this developer was known for putting their hand to some high quality titles. So Edit Racing predominantly is an arcade racer at its core. But one of the interesting aspects with this game, as many wouldn't know, is that the game also allows you to customize and alter a variety of customized tracks that all change up different elements, visuals, quality, backgrounds, depending on the music that you play. It was one of those rare cases that you could pop in an external music CD into the console itself, and what it would do is, once the game had been loaded up, it would give you a different variety of courses where it would change up the whole structure, which added a lot more dynamic to the overall gameplay style. So you would never get bored when you were playing, pretty much. Now the game did have some standard courses that you could play through, and you could unlock more features the further into the game that you get, once you complete all of the championship and campaign modes, as you have different characters that you can play as, all with their own distinctive characteristics and traits. But the game also gives you a wide selection of cars, which also give you the opportunity to unlock more the further into the game that you play. But there's definitely a good selection of cars just literally to begin with, within different categories that start off from different classes like A, B and C. The C being the lowest category, which would be the slower but yet the easiest of the cars to use. But the higher the categories, they'll be faster, but they're also more trickier to use. But even with the visuals, it's got a typical arcade aesthetic that's very reflective of these early 2000s games that follow in a certain style. It's fast paced, it's fun to play. It also has a great soundtrack. From the bass music within the game, that's if you don't use an additional CD. The game's soundtrack alone is enough. It's got a really good mix of like rock soundtracks, and it really suits the overall vibe and just gives it an overall punchy feel that really drives you up and gets you ready for what's ahead. If there's only one gripe that I would really say that I personally have with the game from having spent time playing it, is that the controls aren't as refined. Yes, they are arcade controls, but they're very twitchy, especially with different types of vehicles, as some of the cars that you will use are definitely easier to control and get the hang of more than others. But you'll notice that in later tracks in the game, especially when you have a lot more twists and turns, sometimes it can be very, very difficult to navigate through them. You'll always end up crashing. But one of the other major gripes as well is that the AI opponents that you race against, at certain points, they can literally just whiz past you whenever it suits them, and you never really get too far away from them. But even when you've had a good race, especially on later tracks that are more difficult to navigate, you'll find that you never really get close enough to first place. You're always kind of fighting tooth and nail, and you'll end up having to do and race multiple attempts on one track to have one good run at it to have any chance of winning. So there's a lot of trial and error and a lot of luck involved, and it's only because of the fact is with the AI being so difficult and being so tricky to defeat. But coupled with that, with the twitchy handling physics with most of the cars, that can definitely frustrate a lot of players, if you will. But I have to say, it's a fun title. Like, there's enough variation in it with regards to the tracks There's a lot of cars to play through. Even the characters themselves have their own distinctive quirks and scenes. Now it is in Japanese, but there's a lot of high tempo energy around the game, which will definitely appeal to fans of like fast paced racing games for sure. But just some of those little gripes that I've mentioned might deter some players. But at the same time, because this game is relatively unknown to many, it is interesting and is worth a try. Like the PlayStation 2, like its predecessor, the PS1 before it, still has so many games that we have yet to discover. I'm even finding that even on my other channel with PSX Gaming Memories. As I'm diving into the catalogue of PlayStation 1 games, it's crazy to find so many titles that we didn't even know about, never heard of, never really seen anything in magazines. They just weren't even a thing back then. But now we can get to play them through obviously being able to buy copies of games online. Now mind you, they are expensive, so emulation is obviously the next best option if you can get them working. But not everybody knows how to use emulation, or not everybody wants to, which is totally fine. But the only other alternative to that will be to use original hardware, and if you're willing to spend a lot of money to buy all of these games, which will cost you a pretty penny, then you can do that. But not everybody has that luxury anymore these days, so you just have to weigh out your options and see which is going to be a best fit for you in all respects. But I would recommend trying this title out. Again, it's different, it's quirky, there's many different modes, and the fact is that it has additional extras with the edit mode, that you can pop in a different music CD and the tracks will auto generate depending on the music tracks that are playing, so you'll get a load of different variety. So pretty much you can have an unlimited selection of tracks at your disposal, and in all regards that's more than enough to keep you playing the game for quite some time. If you can deal with the challenging AI and the twitchy controls, this is a fun game. There's definitely enough here to keep you playing for a while. I was impressed by it, and it was a lot better than I thought it would have been. But considering it's created by developers that are known for working on very popular games, it's no surprise that the game turned out to be a lot better than you would have expected. And for a relatively unknown game, when we look at the sea of racers that are on the PS2, this is definitely a lot better than most of them out there, because there definitely are some lower quality ones and games that really should never have existed, which I have already covered on the channel, and it definitely leaves you with that understanding as to why, pretty much. But then there are those other titles like this here that are appealing and that will appeal to a select few and that are enjoyable in short bursts. Yes, they are tricky, but they're a lot of fun at the same time. It really just depends on what you get out of the experience. But there is definitely more than enough here for fans of racing games, even arcade racers. You'll fit right in with this one, so I do recommend that you give it a go. But it really just depends on you and what you want from it at the end of the day. But with that being said, give it a look, see what you think for yourself. You'll make that decision as to whether you like it or don't like it. But if you have played it already, I would love to hear your thoughts and what you think of it already. Is this something that you would play, or is it something that you didn't even know about before? So be sure to share it down in the comments below. And if you would like to see more content around other rare, obscure and quirky games like this that were also released on the PlayStation that very few know about, then make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel and hit that bell to be updated of future videos. And you can also check out the playlist here on screen to see more of these obscure games that I have already covered on the channel, so that you can see them in action. And I will see you all in the next one.